Hi, it's Ben Grabham again. We're continuing our bike setup and rider tips series with ADB. Today we're going to be focusing on bike setup for off-road racing. I first started racing when I was 10 years old, and that was in the bush, and I'm pretty sure my first race I actually got close to last. But luckily since then I've done a lot of racing and learned a lot of tricks and tips along the way, and won at the highest level in Australia in the 4 days, AORC, and even at international 6 days. I've also learned a lot racing against world-class riders like Shane Watts, David Knight, Juha Salminen. And when I moved to a team manager role, I went on to manage guys like Toby Price, and even now I work with some of Australia's top leading AORC riders. But enough about me, let's talk about the way to set up your bike for some off-road racing. The most important part for setting up your bike for off-road racing is the suspension. There's a lot of reasons why. Number one is safety. You're always pushing 100%, so you want the bike to be safe under you. At the same time, you want to be comfortable and able to attack the terrain as fast as you can. I like to go with a firmer, more controlled setup for off-road racing. The firmness, I think people confuse a little bit between sometimes a firm setting and a harsh setting. I like it to be firm, to take all the big hits, and I can push faster and faster without the bike wallowing and getting out of shape. But at the same time, I don't want any harshness where it's a lot of feedback and hard to hang on through the jittery bumps, because otherwise that causes a lot of fatigue and just makes the bike a handful. Then on the other side, when I say I like it to be controlled, I run the rebound a little bit slower than what I do on trail riding. It just gives me the confidence to charge in areas, whether it's a creek section or a log or a section of bumps, and know the bike's not going to get all unsettled and lively and kick me over the bars or off the back, for example. You hear people talk a lot about the suspension valving and the shocks and forks, and so they should. It's very important, but at the same time it's important to get it right. So a little bit like the trail riding, first I want that initial feel to be nice and supple, mainly for energy and comfort, but then I like it to be quite aggressive, so it comes in and firms up quite a bit more than what a trail rider setup would go towards. Having a balanced suspension is also very important as well, because if you have the front too hard and you come charging in turns, you're just going to struggle to make the turn, and vice versa. If you have the rear really hard, you're just going to keep getting kicked forward and bottom out the front. So I like to keep it pretty even. A lot of the bikes these days, they come out of the box pretty even, so if I start going firmer on the front, I go similar clicks on the rear. I see a lot of guys struggle with the balance of their bike coming into turns in racing these days, so a good one to play with is fork height. Like if you're struggling coming into a turn, the front feels tall, don't be afraid to slide your forks up through the triple clamps a little bit. Or on the other end, if you're happy with the front end height and you want to make it turn a bit sharper or make it turn a bit slower, don't be afraid to raise the rear to make it turn into a corner quicker. Or if you want to slow down the way it turns into a turn, maybe lower the rear. Like there's no harm in changing and testing sort of 5 or 10 mil here or there. You're not going to do anything dangerous that way. Another good area to focus on when setting up your bike for off-road racing is the exhaust system. The standard ones aren't too bad on a lot of bikes, but in general they're quite restricted and rather heavy. There are a lot of good aftermarket exhausts on the market, like this Acro for example. It saves a lot of weight over the standard unit, and it's just a good way to broaden the power and tune the bike a bit more to what you like. So do a bit of research into what exhaust you want and make sure you get the right one for where you want the power. It's nice to have broad power. That's why I go towards the exhaust like this for off-road racing, because a lot of the tracks are like this. They're a lot wider than what we're doing with the trail riding, so you can use a lot more power. And it's just nice to be a little bit lazy sometimes with gear changes, so you can hold a gear from this corner to the next. And there's a lot of advantage from having wide power when you're in a racing situation. Another important setup trick for racing is tyres. The best racing tyre in my opinion is something like this, the MX33. It's a soft to medium terrain tyre. Yes, it's going to wear out a little bit quicker in hard pack than some of the other tyres on the market, but I just chase maximum grip when I'm racing. You're racing for hundredths of a second sometimes, so I lean towards this. Happy for them to wear out a little bit quicker than other tyres, but the grip is unreal. Tyre pressures are just as important when you're setting up for off-road racing. I like to go quite soft. mainly for traction and ultimate grip to go fast. But at the same time, I don't really like to risk running tubes, so I'll run a Moose. And the way we work on pressures there at the Moose is I run like an old Moose if I want to get it quite soft, or if I do want to run a high pressure, then I'll run a fresh Moose, which is in general up around your 14 to 16 PSI. And that's the way we adjust that way. And then running the Moose also eliminates any chance of having a puncher. So I like to stick to around your, I don't know, realistically around a 10 PSI mark if someone was trying to guess with a feel with the Moose. And that gives me the ultimate grip and feel over the bumps and gets me the best time I can. I hear a lot of people sort of complain when they first jump on a Moose about the dead, little bit harsh feeling. It is a little bit of a feeling. A lot of the Mooses are getting better and better these days, so it is getting a little bit away from that, but they still are a different feel to a tube. So just keep logging the laps if you're new to Mooses, and you will get used to the feel. A lot of these registered enduro bikes come standard with FIM tyres. There's a bit of conflict about them. A lot of people believe they're garbage, but straight out of the box new, they're okay. They just don't last near as long as something like this, so the performance drops off pretty quick. So you'll get a short ride out of them and then change over to more of an aggressive style knobby. Power is another super important part on the racetrack in off-road racing. I like to go with strong progressive power. Another great advantage on this WR450 is just being able to switch on the Yamaha Power Tune app and plug in. What I've done here is I've come up with a few different maps, and what I will go to is I'll go away from my mellow one that I was using for the trail riding, and I'll go more to my enduro one, which is, like I was saying, a bit more stronger. As you can see, I've richened up the fuel a little bit more than standard, or standard is all the zeros, and I've richened up a few of those boxes. And then what we've done with the ignition is just retarded a few of those boxes. We've gone richer for the stronger power, but then we've gone retarded just to bring the power on nice and linear and give me good torque. With the power in off-road racing, a lot of people need to take advantage of just the dual maps and being able to adjust the power to suit the conditions. For example, in the technical terrain, you could cut your power in half and you could go out there and win the special test. But then on the other hand, the other special tests, you want maximum power. So that's where a lot of these power switches come into play. If you've got two options, don't be afraid to go to the mellow maps for the technical terrain. It may feel slower to some of these races, but a lot of the time, if the rear wheel is hooking up and you're getting good drive and riding the bike as fast as you can, your times are going to be really good. And then vice versa, once you get it in open stuff, open her up, put it back on the power map and let it go.